Hey everyone, this is Brandon from the Daily Cyber. This is going to be an awesome episode. We actually have Debbie Reynolds on the show. It's going to be pretty amazing. We're going to be talking about some privacy, breach readiness plans, just a lot of great information for you guys to get ready for, how to protect your business and how to deal with an incident when it comes up. So Debbie's an expert in this area. I've been watching her on LinkedIn and her videos and everything she's been putting online. She's got amazing knowledge, expertise, and she helps to share her information online. So let me give you a little information about Debbie. Here's her bio. Debbie Reynolds is the founder, CEO, and chief data privacy officer at Debbie Reynolds Consulting. Debbie Reynolds, the data diva, is a world-renowned technologist, thought leader, and advisor to multi-international corporations for handling global data privacy, cyber data breach response, and complex cross-functional data-driven projects. Mrs. Reynolds is an international published author, highly sought-out speaker, and a top media presence about global data privacy, data protection, and emerging technology issues. Ms. Reynolds has been recognized as a technology visionary and as a top leader in data privacy and industry worldwide. So you can kind of tell, like just that alone, you can see the expertise that we're going to have on the show. So I want to make sure that you guys are ready. Grab a notepad, grab a coffee, grab a tea, and let's hack at it. I'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, Usato. Usato is a Canadian-based cybersecurity company that provides 24/7 cybersecurity support and compliance service that align their customers' tolerance for risk, their clients, suppliers, and government contractual mandates. Usato's teams focus on using insights to drive business decisions. There's no need to leave strategies to chance, when insights can be used to show what changes need to be made and how to make them. Usato offers multiple services to help companies simplify IT, centralize cybersecurity management, and meet compliance standards. Usato can customize their service to work with your existing IT network and programs. For more information, contact Usato at info@uzado.com or visit their website at www.uzado.com. So yeah, guys, are you guys ready for this? Comment in the actual chat. I want to see what you guys want to know, what questions you have about data privacy, data protection, and just really get a lot of information out of this stream today. I think it's really important right now with everything that's going on. These are one area that we need to really look at. A little bit of housekeeping just to let you guys know. I want to thank Neil for the cyber insecurity. These guys have been building up a massive community, and you guys have been helping us, really get out there, share this information. I've been hearing guys, private chatting with me, letting me know how much, it's helping them in their career and their job and what's going on. So thank you so much. Make sure you take the time to share this out with your community. And ask lots of questions. This episode is for you guys to answer a lot of questions that you might have about the industry, and make sure you get that next level of education that you can apply to your certifications, to your job, to your organizations that you work with, and help provide value for yourself as well as your organizations. So let's get Debbie in here and let's get started. Hey, Debbie, how's it going?
How are you?
Not bad, not bad. How's things going with you in 2021?
All things considered, I really can't complain. I think having so many people not traveling and online, it's easier to sort of get in contact with people. But also it's been heating up in terms of people being able to really embrace doing things online, like conferences and meetings and stuff. So I'm actually getting a lot more done than I was doing when I was traveling as much. So yeah.
Now, are you finding ever since the pandemic started, you're more busier helping companies secure themselves?
Yes, I'm busier. I think I'm busier just because we have more, when you're not traveling and you're not trying to go from place to place, you could do so many more things. So about 2 weeks ago, I was able to do speaking engagements on 3 continents in 1 week. So if I was traveling, I would not have been able to do that. So that was actually a benefit.
So then you could be a little bit more focused on work and what was going on, right?
Yeah, totally. Instead of being in traffic and being in airports and stuff. So it actually helped. I enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Now, some of our community is starting out in the cybersecurity industry. what would you advise them or recommend that they need to know about data privacy, breach readiness plans, things along that line?
I think one of the main things they need to realize is no matter what your job is, data privacy issues are going to seep into it because data privacy is about humans. And if you're dealing with data that's about humans or from humans, uh, those types of data will have different types of rights and regulations and things that you have to consider when you're working with it. So that's probably the first thing. And the second thing would be that the amount of regulations that will happen over the next couple of years will will explode. So I think I saw a study that said currently, I think they want to say, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40% of the world has privacy regulations. But the study said they think within the next 5 years, that may grow to 70%. So this is an issue that is not going away. It's actually getting bigger. So being able to understand that, even though your job or your role may not be, in privacy, I always say that privacy and cybersecurity have a symbiotic relationship. So there are, many issues in privacy that may impact you in your cybersecurity career.
And I read an article not too long ago where they say like data privacy right now is the new gold, right, for organization. It's the essential that they have to protect. So I completely agree with you. Now, we've already got our first question from the community. Greetings from Costa Rica. Percy, what is the best practice to keep your personal data private?
That's a good question. I love Costa Rica, by the way, so this is fun. The best practice to keep your data private, I would say, is be careful where you share your data. So my thing is, you don't want to put something out there or, on the internet or whatever that you can't control. So I had a situation recently where I was talking to someone and they had a bit of information that maybe they shared with one person and that person shared it with someone else and they didn't really like that. But the issue is if you don't have to put it on the internet, definitely don't put it on the internet. Be careful about the things that you share, really think about it. An example would be, oh, I'm going on vacation next week, so that may be a situation where someone will say, oh my God, let's go rob this person's house. Or let's say that you have a password that you use all the time and maybe you put it on a Post-it note and it's on your computer. Someone can say, well, let's use this person's password and try all these different services. And a lot of people, unfortunately, reuse passwords. So you may have open yourself up for something like identity theft just by, having your Post-it note or your password on your computer. So just try to find ways that, really think it through about the types of data sharing that you're doing, who you're sharing the data with, and being able to minimize when you can. Or, even like me, like I use Amazon a lot. So a lot of times I don't go on independent other sites because I'm like, do I really want to share my data with some other person, or other company? So I sort of think about that.
Right. So now if I was, and just to kind of continue that conversation, so what would be the top 5 things you'd recommend for someone like maybe starting out, how to protect their privacy? For example, like one would be like VPN, right? Having a VPN portal. What would be those other things you'd recommend?
So probably do not reuse passwords. So if you use a certain login and password to one service, don't use it somewhere else. Because if someone breaches your information or they think that they know your password, they may try it at these different services. So if you're using the same thing, they can break into other accounts. Another thing I would say is I highly recommend that people get a password manager. So if you get a password manager, some have free services. I recommend that you pay for it because if you pay for it, you have more rights about what happens with your data, right? If you get a password manager, some of them, they let you log into your account without having to retype your password, or they'll suggest like a tougher password that maybe you wouldn't have been able to come up with and to change passwords. That's a thing that I highly recommend. Also, like I know a lot of people use Google Drive or Dropbox and stuff like that. Make sure that you're not sharing those passwords with other people, and that you're changing those passwords relatively often. So like say every 3 months, every 6 months. Definitely try to change, those passwords just in case there's a breach. If Dropbox has a breach, if you have a breach, if you're changing those passwords more often, it will make you less vulnerable. Probably maybe the last thing, I don't know if I've said 5 already, but I would highly recommend, especially on accounts that are very sensitive in nature, like your financial stuff, that you take advantage of two-factor authentication if it's offered. A lot of cyber criminals, they look for people who are the low-hanging fruit. So they're looking for people who aren't, who are reusing passwords. They're looking for people who aren't careful about how they share their data. So those people are easier to hack than someone that has two-factor authentication. So being, you don't want to be the low-hanging fruit. So do what you can to not be like sort of the person that's the easiest access or easiest target for a hacker.
Right. And I think I want to add on, doesn't some of those services with the password managers have a dark web scanner as well? They're scanning the dark web to make sure.
They do. Right. They do. So it's not a plug or anything, but one of the ones that I use and have used for a long time is Keeper. And I like it. I like it because it doesn't try to force you to do it one way or another. So you can use it just to have a list of your passwords on there, or you can decide you could decide if you wanted to log you into stuff, and then you could decide if you wanted to help you come up with a more difficult password and stuff like that. So
perfect. Yeah. Now I know they were talking about here. I'm just going to bring another question in. Do you recommend using programs like VeriCrypt or BoxCrypt to keep data at rest secure?
I think that's a good idea. So this is interesting that you all asked me this question. So I was interviewed by Business Insider, and an article will come out soon, and they asked me basically almost the same question. So the issue with that, I think, is a good idea. So this is what happens. So let's say you use Dropbox. So you use Dropbox, you put your stuff in the cloud in Dropbox. When it's in the cloud, there are certain types of encryption that they're using. It's pretty strong when it's there. When the data is being transmitted to or from the cloud, they can have, they're securing the data in transit, right? But let's say you replicate your data to your computer. So then all those protections that you had in the cloud with Dropbox no longer exist. So some people are trying to do things where they're encrypting things on their computer. I would say let's go back to even maybe a simple basic thing where people, unfortunately, like they may share their computer with someone and maybe they don't have passwords or profiles on it that are separate, especially a Dropbox. So like say I sync my Dropbox down to my computer. If I didn't do anything else, it's sort of just an open file system. So if I wanted to keep that stuff secure, I would highly recommend that you get like another tool that helps you do that.
Okay. So that one in the cloud, one locally. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's perfect. Another question. I know that these companies are selling our info to advertisers and that's bad, but what else should we be aware of what they're doing with our data? So I think this line runs along the line of all the social media sites and all the ones we get in trouble, like Facebook and our data.
Yeah. Well, the issue with data, if it were only being used for advertising, I think that would people wouldn't be as upset about it. But the problem is, what happens is when you give up data about yourself, it goes into a system where either the company can take that data or they can give it to someone else, like a data broker, and they combine that information together to create like a dossier about people. Right. And maybe that's a good dossier. So maybe that means you get, a better credit card or something because they think that, they know certain things about you and the mode of life that you have. But then it could be bad. So let's say you did a search on the internet for a particular disease or something. And then so a data broker gets sold the information that you search for that. They could infer, they can say, well, maybe this person has this disease, so then I'm going to sell this information to an insurance company, and maybe you'll go for insurance or something like life insurance, and they'll deny you because they got this other information that was inferred about you that may or may not be true, right? But then they don't have no obligation legally to tell you how they got that information. So there are people who are unfortunately, being shut out from jobs even before they, when their resume hits the system, it ends up in the trash can, or people can't get credit or have problems getting insurance because of some of this information that's being compiled about them that is not visible to us. And also it may not be accurate.
Right. And like, is that they're actually creating a profile, right? And that profile can go from anything and it give you a higher score in life or insurance or whatever that may be. Or like you said, it could be one that they're looking at marketing. It could be a marketing portfolio that they know me. I'm a cybersecurity guy. I'm going to sell you things that are going to be related to desks and chairs and microphones. And because I see you doing that. So that's all I'm going to get marketed, right? I might not get pillows. Right. I'll get microphones, headphones, you name it. Right.
Right.
No,
exactly.
That's awesome. Now, next question is, aren't password managers vulnerable as well?
Password managers do have a level of vulnerability, but a lot of that is, in my opinion, is more kind of a user issue. Okay. So being able to, the companies that do these password manager things, they try to be very careful with how they manage people's passwords, because they know it's kind of a vault. So my password manager has like 2 passwords, and then it offers me 2-factor authentication. So there's like a master password, and then there's kind of a regular password when I'm doing certain transactions. So I think being able to have a password manager that has those extra steps will help, because I feel like those are steps that a lot of hackers, they say, well, let's say there are 10 password managers. They're going to go to the one that's the easiest to hack, or they're going to go to the person that's easiest to hack. So I think I've not had any problems with that. I'm not necessarily concerned about that. Maybe if I was like, Warren Buffett or something, that would concern me, but no.
Well, I think online, if you do a Google search, you'll probably find that some of them have been compromised over time and distance, right? But then there's things like you said. I mean, you have to look at 2-factor authentication. You have to look at, even compartmentalizing your passwords too, right? Bank, social media, things along that line. So depending on how secure you want it, I mean, you're going to lock things down as best as possible. If you're like online shopping, social media, things along that, then these password managers at the default would be not bad. But if you're doing banking and government stuff and your legal stuff, then you got to have like 26 character passwords, 2-factor authentication, and make sure everything's done right. So it's a level of usage I would recommend too to look at.
Yeah, and then too, one thing I recommend people do, and maybe they're not as crazy as me, but I use different email addresses for different things. So like stores that I shop at and I get coupons, I don't use the same email address that I use for banking.
Right.
So being able to split your accounts out like that also helps as well.
For sure. And I mean, it gives you the diversity of that profile, right? Because if your account is 123@gmail.com and they compromise that one email address, they potentially can go walk through your whole online profile, right?
Right. Totally. Exactly.
Next question. I used a paid version, password manager, but what happens to my stored passwords after my subscription expires?
So after your subscription, this is a great question, by the way. So after your subscription expires, the information is supposed to be deleted. So the best thing you can do is look through the terms of service for the password manager that you have used. And it should be able to have a section about data retention and what they're doing. One issue, this is kind of a legal issue that comes up in the US especially is that it's kind of a gray area in some ways about when things get deleted, when people like close accounts and stuff like that.
Right.
So in the EU and even Canada, I think it's more strict where you have laws that say, when someone closes an account, you have to delete, XYZ data, where in the US, it's because there aren't laws that actually say that explicitly. They leave it up really to the business to decide how they do that, even though they're supposed to do that. But that's kind of even a gray area that I think there are going to be some legal challenges with that. But I think the data privacy laws in the US are moving more towards a situation where they're really looking at data retention because that's a big issue.
Right. And I think doesn't California now start to have data privacies that now if I request that, you delete my data and my information, they're supposed to follow that?
That's right. Right. But then it's good that they put it in that law, but like if you live in another state, you may not have that law, or you may not have, it may not be explicit that a company has to do that.
Right. So if you're if you're California and you're in that state, then that falls under you. But if I'm in Canada using a company in California, I might not fall under that Privacy Act.
Right. Even though there are some companies that, because it's so hard, it's such a pain for them to just say, well, we're going to treat California like this and other people like that. They're trying to harmonize that within their companies, but it's only certain companies like Microsoft and PayPal are two that said that they're going to honor people's rights, even though they're not in California. They want their data deleted, sort of along the lines of CCPA.
Oh, nice. Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome that more companies could follow that. And then, our data would be a little bit more secure. But as we know, with cookies and everything else and people on social media, that scale goes back up again, right? For everyone sharing things.
Right.
Next question I got here is, what is your recommendation on managing executive identities in large companies or with a global presence? I found executive assistants with photocopies of president's passwords ID, and there seems to be multiple points of loss for large targets. So these whales, right? As we call them in cybersecurity. Yeah.
So that's a great question. Who are these people? These are great questions.
These cybersecurity professionals. These guys are in the field. They're either one dive-in students hungry for information or experts in the field. We got them all.
These are excellent questions. These are excellent. These are skin in the game questions, which I really like. So executives are a big target for a couple of reasons. One is a lot of times executives that have been in certain companies, they may have moved up in the ranks. So let's say they started in one job and moved to another job. And a lot of times their permissions, instead of their permissions changing for the job they have, they just sort of snowball. So they end up having access to a lot of stuff that maybe they shouldn't have access to. And then two, when you get executives, sometimes the rules within an organization are different for them. So let's say your organization says that employees need to have a mailbox no bigger than 2 gigabytes. And so the executives may get a thing where, well, their mailbox is unlimited, so they can do whatever. So they end up they collect more data, they have more data. They end up having more access to stuff that they shouldn't have. A lot of times the executives, they may have like an assistant or someone that's helping them with their work, where that person may have access to their email or, whatever other account information that may be sensitive in nature. And then hackers like to target those people because they know that at times those people may like acquiesce to maybe like a request that's made, like a what's the word I'm looking for? Social. What is the word I'm looking for?
Social engineer.
Yeah, social engineering. Yep. Very susceptible to social engineering, mostly because of the shenanigans that happen within corporate America. Right. So, like, I had a friend who was saying you read in a newspaper, oh, this company lost $400,000 because they got a call from someone that said that the CEO wanted them to transfer something at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so for people, just regular people reading that in the news, they say, oh, why didn't that person know that? I'm like, this actually happens in organizations. So it's not actually that crazy that someone would do this or would follow that, because a lot of times that's the way it is. And then two, sometimes a person who's at a lower level may be afraid to question those types of requests. So I think people who have nefarious nature and is trying to take advantage, they take advantage of sort of all those kind of crazy things that happen within organizations. I would say executives, executives need to be following, whatever rule there is for the company about, like, say, changing passwords, or, and I've seen that one where, like a higher level executive, they want their password to be super easy, almost like a vanity plate on their car. So, so then they have these email boxes that are enormous. They have these assistants that are afraid to ask them questions. They have possibly very oversimplified passwords. They're very public in terms of kind of their movement. Sometimes they may even betray their passwords just by talking about themselves. So let's say they're on social media and they're like, oh, my dog's name is Dusty.
Right.
So the person, hacker may say, well, this, his dog is named Dusty. Let me try variations of Dusty. And, bam, they may be into their account. So those are all things that I've experienced or, learned from working with executives. So it's funny because when I work with companies, especially when I work with them and I'm asking them about how they retain their data, I have to really question them about what happens with the executives and how they're being treated differently and why that's creates a cyber risk for the company.
Right. And I think to add on to that, I think one of the things that you have to look at if you're looking at, you're managing executives is look at your acceptable use policy, right? Training, cybersecurity awareness training for the staff, the executives, the assistants, and making sure that there's areas and points where if you have, the president's password and ID, they're in secure areas that's encrypted. So even if they get compromised, that, data is actually harder to compromise, if they do. I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible, especially now with quantum computers right now. There's a big discussion in kind of the security environment about what's going on with quantum computers and encryption. But you're doing that's generally best practices. And you're saying there was multiple points of failure or loss for targets like this. Everything that Debbie said is I completely agree with. And then just adding on to it is like those points, and then just going through training, making sure they're well aware, because I don't know if you knew this, Debbie, I was doing a dark web scan for my organizations that I work for. And a lot of times when you do the scans, it's the executives that now are getting caught because they're, like you said, they're out on different sites of networking sites and different, presentations and things like that. And those sites are getting compromised and they're using their work address, the work email address that now can tie them back into their actual organization. So it's just kind of full loop, right? Versus using a generic Gmail account for these ones and the work address for work, right?
Totally. Yeah, I highly recommend people when they have social media accounts and stuff that they use a different login or a different email than their work email. I highly recommend it.
Perfect. No, totally great. Question: tips on convincing small business owners to train their teams on security awareness.
Yeah, so this is a hard sell, right? And the problem with this is that a lot of people perceive cybersecurity like the fire department. So it's like, we don't care about it until my house is on fire. And now I want to call someone and have them help me.
Right.
Cybersecurity really isn't that way. So I think looking at things that are happening like the SolarWinds issue, all the cyber breaches, they're just going up and up and up. Being reactive isn't enough. You have to be proactive. So, one statistic, I can't remember where I got it from. You may have to look this up, but they were saying small businesses that get hacked the majority of them go out of business in 6 months.
Right.
So, if you're a gigantic company, you can absorb the shock of a breach and sort of keep going. But a lot of smaller businesses, they can't. A lot of them may go out of business. So if you're trying to convince someone why is it important for them to have cybersecurity awareness training, I will point to that statistic about most companies that get breached, they go out of business. The smaller companies, so it is a lot. Obviously there may be records that have been compromised and lost. There may be money that has been taken as a result of that. There's a trust issue. So let's say you're a small mom and pop bakery or something, and you got cyber breach. Maybe people decide they don't want to do business with you anymore. So it's sort of a snowball effect that can be, better managed if you're educating people. And unfortunately, when companies are thinking about educating people about cybersecurity, they put a lot of pressure and onus on kind of the people who are the lower level employees, where they have the least amount of risk because they have the least amount of access to stuff. So it really needs to be incumbent. It needs to be a culture, I would say, of cybersecurity, and the culture, it has to be top down, not bottom up.
Okay. Yeah. And I think to add on to that, one of the things you have to look at is you look at like the environment itself, right? And Debbie said it perfectly, is that if the SMB, small organization, can they handle a breach? What's the actual, risk and the cost, and actual loss? Hours down, loss of revenue, loss of brand reputation, which Debbie talked about. Take that into consideration, because most organizations, you put your organization business hat on, they're thinking about profit, they're thinking about loss, and then thinking about brand reputation. Cybersecurity awareness is really not on their map because they're thinking about making money, right? And then securing that money. Well, if cybersecurity awareness is that securing the money, that's how you're coming across and saying, look, by the way, what we can do is we can help you secure the profits. We can help you secure the organization so you can build, versus, we have KnowBe4, and it's the great technology. It's, top right card, on Gartner's quadrant, and all. Business owners don't care, right? They care about, how do I protect my business so we can make money, so my staff is more safe, so I don't have any downtime? That's the conversation that you want to have when you're having about, cybersecurity awareness training or any type of solution. It's putting your business hat on, and how's the business run, and what's that? And I think Debbie said it great in the sense of the alignment of that helps you to kind of get into the upper senior executives and the CEO to have that conversation, versus this is the best technology. They're like, yeah, we can't afford it right now.
That's true. And then, a lot of, obviously, businesses, they try to market, they want more customers. But a lot of times when companies suffer breaches, they get less customers, they get less people. So letting them know that having a cyber breach or having something that's possibly preventable could hurt their bottom line in terms of them being able to get more customers and even retain the customers that they do have will definitely get their attention.
Awesome. Now I have actually a great question for you. Thoughts on unconscious bias as it relates to hiring more women in tech roles?
Excellent question. Wow. So my thoughts on unconscious bias. I think it's important that we understand that there are a lot of very talented people in the world that either know cyber, want to know cyber. All of us, I don't know how, maybe Brandon, you can attest to this. All of us have had careers where we've had someone that took time with us to be able to help us kind of build our career, right? So someone somewhere took you to the side and taught you something. So being able to have that way of thinking about things and being able to help people in their jobs and be able to help them kind of, give them confidence or give them support where they are kind of building towards the career that they want is really important. Also, I think, I've been very fortunate where I've had a lot of mentors in my career, and a lot of them have been men because I work in a technical world where there are just so many, guys there. So I think being able to reach out, let's say if one person reached out to another person that was not like them, what would our industry look like then? So
Right.
I think just doing those baby steps, it sounds very big, right? It sounds like, oh my God, it's like world peace. Like, oh, I can't possibly do this. But if every person in cybersecurity can find one person that's not like them, that they can, either mentor or talk to, or, just be able to sit with them or something and, show them something, you'd be surprised. That may be the spark that leads them to, a stellar career in cyber.
Awesome. Now I'm going to get on my soapbox on this. I think when I got in IT in 2001, there was definitely a bias, right? When you looked at that, and there was bias on both sides, right? First sides was the male, because it's a male thing and it's technical and only guys deal with technical, and the women don't do that because it's just not what they're interested in, right? It's a boring job. It's highly technical. It's almost like playing video games all the time. It was kind of that stereotype. Now, as we evolve and, over the years since 2001, it's evolving to the point where now we're starting to see more amazing women in the industry. From, I think Georgia is one of the, top leader when it comes to pen testing, especially when it comes to Wi-Fi. And she's wrote a couple books, yourself with data privacy. So there's a lot of great women that are coming out there. And I think it comes down to having the conversation, but also, understanding it's not about male or female. It's about the information and the value. Right. And then it's just getting the confidence. And I think, at both levels, both male and female, it's the confidence in speaking in this industry and speaking up and having a voice. I think that's changing the industry. I think we're starting to see more people have a voice, both, diversity, male, female, minorities, whatever that may be, are starting to speak up. And now, because of social media and all that, we're starting to see that, change in the environment of everyone around stepping up and becoming more experts in cybersecurity. And I think that's great because we're in a constant battle. And this is where I tell people, when it comes to cybersecurity, the blue team, the guys that are actually setting up the security and securing it, even the red team that are protecting the environments, we have one hand behind our backs as we're doing this, because hackers don't have any rules or regulations. They don't have to wait for change management. They don't have to wait for approval for the management to do something. If they're going to hack, they're going to hack, right? For us to do something, we have to go through change management. We have to get approvals. We have to get sign off. We have to do that. And it takes time. They're like, I'm going to hack this company, and they start going, right? So the more people we have on our team all over the board, the better it is for us. And that's kind of my feeling on how I see the cybersecurity industry evolving. Yeah. We have a lot of great people that are coming up and sharing. We just keep needing more and more. I mean, that's my insight on this.
Yeah, I'll give you an example I give to people. So let's say I gave 20 people a camera and told them to take a picture of the same thing. So even though they're taking a photograph of the same object, all their photographs would be different because they're all taking a photograph from a different perspective. So if you don't have diverse people who are looking at things from a different perspective, we can't really solve this problem, because we're just going to keep, bashing our head up against the wall and figure out, like, what can we do differently? So having people, even for me, I really like working with people like from all over the world, collaborating with them, because you just never know. Someone may see something that you don't see. So being able to have a more diverse group of people from, skill set, experience, location, race, gender, whatever, will definitely give you a better perspective.
For sure. No doubt about it. So now we got some more questions for you, which is great. Keep them coming. Hopefully we're answering your questions, and you guys, anything you want to know about cybersecurity, we're going to open up the floor right now. It doesn't have to be data privacy or protections or anything like that. Open up the floor. You can see you guys asking a lot of great questions about the cybersecurity industry. Keep them coming. So the next question is, in a medium 150 people size company, is worth use a message service, Skype, Teams, Discord, or sharing data with this, or have a self-hosted messaging service? I mean, what is safer? So basically, I think he's thinking about at 150 people organization company, is it better or valuable to use like a service like Skype, Teams, or Discord in sharing data, or should you use your own internal self-hosted?
That's an excellent question. These are great questions. You know what? I don't think there's one best way to do it. I don't think I can say one is better than the other. I would say people are using these tools, whether you want them or not. That's one thing. If you decide to do messaging internally, the advantage to that would be that you're keeping a record of that stuff. And then you have to decide how long you want to keep it, if at all, if it's important to keep. And then if people are using, Skype and Teams and other stuff that you're not aware of, the issue may be there may be some business value or business records in there that the company may not know about and need that information. So a lot of times if people are on, let's say Skype, for example, not Skype, what is that thing? I don't know. It's the little message app
Slack?
where people Slack. Forgot about it. So let's say people are on Slack, and I actually like Slack, and a lot of people were kind of coordinating stuff or whatever. But once you start putting in business content in there, it becomes a problem because the CISO or the cyber people may not know that data is out there. And if you don't know it's out there, you can't really protect it. So I think going back to your point, Brandon, being able to have these acceptable use policies within companies and telling people how they want people to manage the data that they use, I think that's one thing. But then there's another thing. And, I've had this situation where, let's say you want to coordinate something with someone. So it isn't a useful business record. It was just important in the moment. Like, so let's say I text Brandon and say, hey, can you turn the server, reboot the server at 10 o'clock? That's not really a business record, right? And sometimes you have to make those communications with people. So part of it is working with the business to, first of all, decide what they think is important to be able to keep. And then also making sure employees are educated about where they put those messages, especially if it has a business interest.
For sure. It totally makes sense. And I think one thing I would say is you got to look at what's the business data that you're sharing, like you said, and the level of encryption. Like, I know for government and military, all that, they use, a lot of times they use their own, and we can ask Neil this on his own, but a lot of times they're using their own internal environments because they want it, isolated to their environment. They don't want to get out that data has data stored in another cloud solution or something like, for Slack or Skype or anything like that. They need it internally, that they have total control of the data, right? Because again, if you put that data, sometimes these Skype, Teams, Slack, anything like that, they have access to the data stored on their servers. So you have to be careful, you have to look at the terms of service and things along that line, right? Sometimes it's encrypted in REST, but you still have to be mindful of that. So if you're looking at the level of compliance maybe, or requirements from your client or requirements of the internal organization of how the data needs to be stored, that's the first thing to look at. If there's high top secret privacy issues, then you have to look at, keeping it more internal and using solutions like that. If it's like marketing, like we'll talk about marketing material, hey, here's a good shade or logo or things we're using, that might be lower in the data privacy. So if you're sharing that over Slack, it's not a big deal, right? So you kind of look at data classification. I think that's what I'm looking at, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right. And making sure, because the employees are the ones that really have to do the hard work. It would be hard for the cyber people to be able to be so in depth, right, with how people are handling their data and those business records on kind of that, very detailed level. So it's important that the employees know what's expected of them in terms of classifying data and putting it in the right places.
Right. No, completely agree. So a couple more questions. We got about 15 minutes to go. So this is awesome. Guys, I hope you're getting a lot. Give me some thumbs up in the actual chat. Let me know how you guys are liking this, in this information. Hopefully this is stuff you guys can take, to your work, tomorrow, and start to kind of implement some of the strategies. So Debbie, got a couple more questions for you. Is Windows 10 drive encryption secure? And should I trust this function?
As far as I know, Windows 10 Drive is secure. You mean OneDrive?
I think they're thinking about 10 drive encryption. So they're looking at the encryption for Windows.
Okay. As far as I know, it is. I haven't really gone into depth about them. I don't know, or I've not heard that they have any kind of systemic vulnerabilities there. But then also, I don't really use their cloud, so I really can't comment about that. But all of these really big companies, they're typically using the best in class encryption that they could possibly get their hands on. So I would imagine that Microsoft is using pretty good encryption. But I think people sometimes get confused between what's on the cloud and what's on their computer. So if something is on your computer, not in the cloud, it's being protected in different ways.
So from what I'm reading online, I just kind of pulled this up quickly. It looks like it's BitLocker is Microsoft's proprietary disk encryption software for Windows 10.
Okay. Yeah, I like BitLocker.
So I mean, any encryption that you're looking at, do some Google searches, kind of look at, the benchmarks, things along that line. See if, what level of encryption, is it,
256.
Has it been breached? 256, 128. What are you looking at? So kind of do that research and then see if you're going to implement. I would look at now, there's new technology coming out, quantum proof. Start looking at that. If you're looking at implementing a new cyber or encryption strategy, look at quantum proof because that's the next level and see how that will be implemented in your organization. I know there's a few companies now starting to come out with it. So, and it's still in the same, I guess the price line of AES and all those ones that you'll be getting. So take a look at that because we're always looking for cybersecurity professionals, that next level, right? That next level of security.
Yeah, and it's probably a good idea if there are companies that you really admire and think they're doing a good job. Most companies will tell you what they're using to some extent. So at least you get an idea of kind of what's the best in class that other companies are using.
For sure. Next question. What do you think about the new trend to stop using passwords in the companies like Microsoft this year? They're switching to passwordless technologies like biometrics.
Yeah, so this is the FIDO, the Fast ID Online thing. So basically, a lot of companies are trying to go beyond passwords, and we'll eventually get there. Maybe not super soon, because people, I feel like the way the industry has gone with how people are educated about cybersecurity. You learn Active Directory, you learn how to give people permissions that way, you give people's login and password. And so going to a system where people aren't using passwords, they're using different things, sort of changes the paradigm of how kind of people were taught in the past about how you set up accounts and different things like that. But I think the passwordless future, I guess, is good and bad. So the good part is that not using a traditional login and password and doing something in a way that uses something about a person that can't be easily replicated, like a biometric marker, definitely makes people's accounts more secure in that way. I think the danger or the problem or the concern that people have is, will my biometrics be breached? So can someone impersonate me if they have my biometrics? And you can't change your face, you can't change your eyes, you can't change your thumbprint. So the concern is, how secure would this data be? And so I think what the trend that we're seeing now, this is definitely going to happen, is that companies are definitely looking at biometrics and things like that, identifiers to cut down on fraud and theft. But then also there's kind of this movement towards some type of decentralized data storage where your super personal information like biometrics never leaves your device or your machine or something like that, because people are concerned that if the stuff is in a bucket in the cloud somewhere, someone's definitely going to be able to get to that. So those are the concerns.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to this, when you look at it too, if you go to, true, what they call is passwordless authentication, Well, now there's the reduction in password resets, right? And password storage, right? Because now it's running through the two-factor authentication, something you know or something you have, right?
Right.
Or something you are, right? So what happens is you might get a PIN, but also you have to use your thumbprint, right? So the PIN's text you something you receive, right? And then you have something you are, your thumbprint, face recognition. A lot of the computers now have the biometrics thumbprints that now you can start to log in, right? So once we start to get to those two-factor authentication process of biometrics and the passwordless, I think we're adding another layer of complexity. Now, the one thing that I'm hearing on my side is when there's archaic systems, right? They're having a problem where there's some like out of life, out of scope, and they're trying to implement that. That's when you start to run into problems where it's not true passwordless anymore. They have to almost, jimmy it in a solution to make it work. And you have things that are older, archaic systems that are not as secure as maybe the new servers, the new technologies, the new authentication, new applications that you're working. So I think there's still a little bit of a gap there.
Yeah, definitely. And there will continue to be. So unfortunately, companies that have legacy data, they want to keep it for whatever reason. They may have a legal reason, they may have a business reason. The problem with a lot of those systems is that a lot of times companies don't want to pay the money to update them, like put the data onto a new system or whatever. So they plug it in and stuff it in the corner somewhere. But sometimes that's some of their biggest risk. Because if say for instance, the data is on a server or something, it's like out of warranty, can't update it anymore. It becomes this huge vulnerability for companies. So being able to find a way to sort of bridge that gap, part of it to me is being able to take a deeper look at legacy data. Like, do you really need it? If you need it, should we update it, put it on a new system, something that wouldn't require you to contort in some way to be able to try to make it fit into sort of this new, passwordless future.
Right.
One of the statistics, and you should go on, it's called FIDO. I think it's FIDO.org, FIDO.org.
Yep.
They had a statistic on there that said the average person has 90 like username and passwords, and I'm thinking, this is not sustainable. It's like, especially in terms of privacy, so do I have to go into 90 different accounts and mess with the privacy settings for each? It's just not going to happen. So I think going to a solution where maybe the person is the keeper of their data or the keeper of their bank, and then they give their data bank, let's say, and then they're granting access when companies are asking for it. I think that's the way it's going to go.
Makes total sense, right? And I think something to kind of look up as you guys are doing this. It's FIDOalliance.org. So if you guys are looking that up, just to kind of let you guys know. Got a couple, two last questions for you. Which is more dangerous, the mass consolidation of unstructured data that contains privacy markers, or poorly identified management of monitoring, where it becomes unknown who is accessing what?
Wow, those are equally bad, I would say. So I would say maybe the worst one is unstructured data, where people don't know where data is, because if it's unstructured, people don't know where data is. It's going to be hard or very expensive to find out what's in that data set. Some companies, because it's such a hard problem, they're trying to scan things by kind of date or creation date. But as you know, if the data was migrated in a certain way, it may not have the correct dates or metadata to be able to kind of do that cut. But I think that, in terms of having data that you don't know who has access to, it's still a hard problem, but maybe it's an easier problem than kind of trudging through a lot of unstructured data for stuff that you don't know what's in it. So I had a friend that said that he has a friend who is the manager or the CISO at a big tech company out in Silicon Valley. And he says that this person, once 1 month a year, they spend time going through auditing who has access to what and why. So it's a big job, I would say. So especially, the example I gave about executives where instead of them getting their permissions changed by every job they go to, they just get added on to. So then they're having access to stuff they shouldn't have. I would say, my opinion would be check those people first as opposed to the lower lying people, because a hacker wants to get to the highest level access person that they possibly can. So they're not going to be looking for the lower level employee. They're going to look for people super high up, whether they're cyber people in administration, people who are in the C-suite that have responsibility, but not necessarily are super hands-on. Those are the people they're looking for.
No, totally makes sense. And I think that's good. I mean, if you're looking at data privacy and you're kind of looking at your data right now, you should have tools in place. If you don't know where your data is, you should have tools in place to scan your network, to classify your data, to understand where your data is at rest, so that you can understand exactly your vulnerabilities, and then have some sort of scanning that makes sure that that certain classification, if it's contracts, financial information, HR information, that you're classifying through the scan, and you can identify where they are so you can pull them into secure areas versus, they're on the cloud somewhere or they're on the storage server somewhere. And then you're like, I don't know, but you got to bring that in, because especially when you look at the conversation that we're having about data privacy, someone can compromise your network, get in there and transverse across the network. Sometimes you won't know someone's in your network for like 6 months. And if they're going around and looking at, your storage, your network, drawing out a profile, and you don't know the data, and they start taking it and downloading it, how do you know what you've lost? It could be too late, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah. It's, and then too, I also saw a stat about data breaches. So they say the cost of a data breach per record, it went up. So I think it was like 150 something. I think it's like up in the 200s now. So think about that gigantic bucket of unstructured data you have, and how much data that you would, that if it was breached, how many records that would be. And you do the math and it becomes untenable at some point.
Right, for sure. And I think that's the thing that we have to look at, right? Is just what's the impact of the exposure, right? If you ever get compromised. And you're saying $200 per record?
I thought it went up to about 2 something. It went up over 200, I believe.
Okay, so I want everyone to kind of do that. Estimate how many records you have in your organization and multiply that by 200. And just think that's the potential impact from one breach. Right? If your data gets compromised, you get ransomware, you get locked down, that's the potential impact, right? Just estimated, right? To think about that, not of course, like we talked about brand reputation, loss of revenue, loss of sales, whatever that may be, but just of that alone. So, and then you want to go back to that cybersecurity awareness training. Check, lost this $200 million, $20,000 for cybersecurity awareness training. I guess, you'll look at the budget there.
These are all good stats that you guys should be able to find online. I think Cisco does a really good report every year with all those statistics. So definitely pull that down, use it when you're talking with the business people who they want to understand the money impact. So being able to do that math for them, I think helps make your case.
Awesome. Now we got one last question regarding privacy in a global company around 10K employees. What would keep you up at night, Debbie? Walking the door to a new job, what is your 30-day goal to better understand the privacy needs of the company?
I think probably the best thing, 30 days, understand the privacy needs of the company, is understanding where their data is. So not just where they say their data is, but where it actually is. So a lot of times when I go into companies and I ask them where their data is, sometimes I'm presented with a data retention document. Mm-hmm. And so this is the prim and proper, pretty report about, this stuff is here or there. And then I talk with the IT folks, and I'm like, so what really happens? Like, where do people really hold their stuff? So a lot of times when you look at companies that get fined on data privacy issues, they're not being fined on what they say they do, they're being fined on what they actually do. So operationally, in terms of what they're actually doing, That's really what I want to be able to find out about, and then obviously be able to rank their risk, maybe high, medium, and low, and then give them a report of what that is, and then the company needs to decide. Maybe I make a recommendation, but they need to decide how they want to attack or approach the challenge.
Okay, makes sense. Well, Debbie, I mean, we're up time. We're just at the end of the stream right now. I want to thank everyone who asked all the great questions. Hopefully, you guys got some value. Give me some thumbs up in the actual chat. Let me know what you guys thought. Debbie, I just put on your LinkedIn profile here. Best way to contact you, is it LinkedIn, your website?
LinkedIn, my website. I have a YouTube channel, Debbie Reynolds Consulting. Definitely LinkedIn. So I like to link in with people, and I put a lot of good content out and like to chat with folks there.
Awesome. So you guys, the LinkedIn is actually just below here. You'll see it. And then make sure you write that down, take a screenshot, and go connect with Debbie like right now. And then here's her website, Debbie Reynolds Consulting.com. Check out our website. You guys have any questions? You need any information about data privacy, breach readiness, plans, anything along that line, anything we've talked about, reach out to Debbie. She's there to help you guys out. Debbie, thank you so much. It was a lot of great information. I learned a lot from today's conversation. I hope everyone else did. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This was fantastic. Thank you.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put you in the lobby and we're going to finish off. Thanks so much, Debbie.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, that was awesome. I don't know what you guys thought of the actual conversation. A lot to talk about when it comes to data privacy, protection, security, encryption. I mean, you name it, all stuff that, all of us security professionals are dealing with day in and day out. Make sure you connect with Debbie. She's a wealth of information. Like I said, just like you guys were seeing, and she said there, she has a lot of great content, a lot of videos that she's posting online. So you guys can keep learning what Debbie's working on, what she's advising her clients, advising the industry. She keeps posting great content. I highly recommend you not only just, connect with her, but you also follow her content. I want to thank our moderators for today. This was amazing. Keeping the chat clean as well as giving all the questions. I want to thank Cyber Insecurity. A lot going on with the network. Make sure that you subscribe to the Twitch channel. Share this with your family and friends, other colleagues. We're really building this out to make sure that we have the best content here for you guys, to make sure that you get everything you need when it comes to cybersecurity, from jumping into the career of cybersecurity to when you're in there, what to do and how to strategize. And some experts are coming in here to make sure that you have the leading cutting edges of cybersecurity defense and how to protect your organization, how to protect your clients, and how to protect your team. So I want to leave off there and want to say, guys, just don't forget, software is hackable, being connected is vulnerable. I'll see you next Daily Cyber.